Hello and welcome back to Strathpeffer Junction. We've got something a wee bit different today, certainly different to the last few videos which have been focused very much on locomotives and DCC chipping. One thing that I'm really keen to do on my trains, whether that's coaches, wagons, tanks, whatever, is to get some tail lights on. It's a really good thing that you can do to make something look pretty prototypical. It's a nice feature. It adds to the realism of things going around the layout and that flashing taillight. So you can buy static fake model taillights from a number of manufacturers. Some of them are plastic, some are white metal that have been painted, but mostly they are static. They don't flash, there's no light, they're just there to look like a tail lamp. There is a company, I think it's DCC Concepts, but please do correct me if I'm wrong, that does a product of flashing tail lamps. I think they sell maybe 5 in a pack, something like that anyway, but they're really pretty expensive. I think they're a good £20–25 just for 5 tiny little lamps. So I thought, right, well there must be a way that I can do something which will achieve the kind of realistic flashing tail lamp without having to part with 25 hard-earned pounds for the privilege. So what I'm going to do today is try to make my own flashing tail lamps. And I'm going to do that by using one of these Springside Models BR Modern Diesel Electric Local Lamps, the tail lamps kits. And I'm going to customise them using a tiny miniature surface mount, pre-wired surface mount LED. Now these ones actually come with a flashing unit built in. So what I'm going to do, just to keep it as easy as possible, is use the flashing unit that's come. And the flash might not be absolutely prototypical, but it'd certainly be better than nothing. However, I'm going to need to cut the flashing unit off so that I can feed the wires through the loco or the wagon and then join it up at the other side. But that'll probably be another video on installing these into a loco. Today's video is simply going to look at making the lamps up themselves. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Okie dokie, so let's have a quick look at the actual lamps themselves. Now, as I mentioned just in that intro section there, you can get a variety of different ones. Some of them are plastic, some of them are white metal. Now you could use plastic ones, but the problem that you'll have with a plastic lamp is that the LED, the light will shine through the plastic, so you'll need to give it a good paint with black paint, unless it's black plastic, just to prevent any light sort of seepage. The problem is though, by giving it quite a few coats of paint, it's going to make it a bit bigger. It may make it hard to get the lens back in, which is something we'll look at. So while you could use plastic, I would definitely recommend going down the white metal route like this, because you don't have to worry about any light bleed through. Okay, so what do we actually get? Well, I think this is about £5 for 5 lights. They're about £1 each, so they are quite expensive, I guess, for tiny little lamps. But having dabbled a little bit with my 3D printer and plastic art and various other things, I can't get them looking as good as this. So I think this is a good way to go. Now I'm just going to do probably 1 or 2 in the video, so I'll pop the card and the 3 to one side. Now what we have then is a tiny little sprue here with 2 lights on it. Now one of the lenses here is actually already fallen out, and I have put it to one side, but that's good because we need to take the lens out. For the other one, we will need to remove that lens. Now the easiest way that I've found to do that, because there is a potential here for the lens to pop away, and it's so tiny you'll probably never find it away if it flies across the room. So the way that I do it is to get a little bit of Scotch tape so that it doesn't pull the paint off. So that's the Scotch tape there, and just apply the Scotch tape across the lens like that. So across half of the lens. I don't know how well that'll come out. Just so it's gripping it slightly. And then I get a scalpel or an X-Acto knife or something like that with a sharp blade, and just very carefully prise the lens away from the housing. Now, it does take a bit of time to do this, and some of the lenses come away easier than others. There we are, that's it away. Excellent. So that's the lens come away there without it pinging across the room, which is always good. So we'll pop that to one side, I've got just a tiny little glass jar that I'm popping all this in just to keep it together. And we can pop the tape away as well. Right, okay, so what we have then once we've removed the lens is the lamp unit itself and then a little depression that the lens was sitting in. And what we want to do is to drill that out, or to drill that through to the other side, so that we can glue the lens back in on one side, and then on the reverse we can insert a red LED. So that's what we'll move on to now. We'll drill that hole out. Okay, so I've got my pin vise and I have got a selection of tiny little drill bits here. Now, one thing I think that I'll do just very quickly is to introduce the LEDs that we're going to use. Now, I bought these from eBay. I can't remember the exact eBay seller, but they are the tiniest little LEDs, surface mount LEDs that you can get. I'll see if we can get a wee close up so you can see. I mean, these ones are absolutely tiny. They're smaller than the ones that I tend to use on my loco conversions, or in the video that I did on sticking lights into a Lima Class 47. These are really absolutely tiny, and I don't think there's any way that you could easily solder these yourself. Now, these ones also come with a flasher unit built in. The flasher unit has resistors and so on built in too, so you don't have to worry about resisting it down or putting in a resistor if you're going to use it as is. But we'll be cutting a bit of this off and doing other things, so in due course I will need to look at it. But anyway, as is, you've got everything you need to hook this up to a DC supply. So the only thing that you will need to do is to have a bridge rectifier on it, but that's something that I'll do anyway, because I'm planning to put pickups into the locos, or not to the locos, the coaches or the wagons, and I'll put a bridge rectifier and a switch into that circuit. If you're just going to use a battery, that's another way to do it. You could stick a battery inside the coach or inside the wagon and you wouldn't need a rectifier. But anyway, that'll all be for a different video, and at the moment we're just looking at this. Now, the flasher unit as well, I would just quickly say, is probably a little bit fast for absolute prototypical BR tail lights, but it's not that bad. It's a little bit fast, but it's good. It's all pre-built, don't need to worry about it, so we'll live with that. Right, so as I say, it's a tiny little LED, so we only really want to drill a tiny little hole, just marginally bigger than it. I would suggest probably about a 1mm drill bit, but we'll get out a selection of drill bits and have a look just now a wee bit closer to see which will work best. Okay, so I've got a selection of drill bits here which I've picked out, and I think there's a number that might work. What I don't want to do is make it too big so that the lens itself falls out, but obviously it needs to be big enough that the LED can get in. Now, I've got my my calipers here because I think, like most people, one of the first things I did when I bought this little selection of mini drill bits is to drop it, and all the actual drill bits got completely mixed up. So I've no idea what sizes they are. So we'll have a wee look and see what we've got here. Right, so this is a 0.98, so it's almost a 1mm drill bit. I don't think going in the front here we want to be any bigger than that. I think this will be fine, but actually let's have a look. What I think I might do is put a slightly smaller one in. Yes, so this is a 0.9 drill bit, so that's what we're going to use. We'll use a 0.9 drill bit to go in from the front, and then if I need to widen it slightly I can drill in a little bit from the back. But I think if you go above a 0.9 drill bit you're probably in danger of the lens not seating back in properly. So I'll get this fitted into the pin vise here, and then we'll start drilling. Right, so I've got the 0.9 drill bit in the pin vise. As I mentioned in a previous video, I can't remember which one it was now, I used to use a really cheapy Chinese pin vise, and I thought, hey, I don't need to spend very much money on that sort of tool, but actually you do. I found that the Chinese ones were actually pretty, well, this is probably made in China, but the cheap Chinese ones were probably not ideal for getting a really good sort of straight drill, good control. Has a tendency for it not to clamp the actual bit straight, and it can sort of wander as you're doing it. So this wasn't really expensive. I think this is about £15 or something like that, and so it's probably middle of the range in terms of what you can buy, but it's a pretty good one nonetheless. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is to get the drill bit and just centre it. Now, they've obviously used the drill bit to create the depression for the lens, and it's actually left just an ideal shaped hole to be able to get this bit totally centered. So I just pop that in there, and I'm just going to slowly drill down, making sure that I'm keeping it as straight as possible. And of course, underneath where I'm drilling as well, I've got a good cutting mat too, so I'm not going to go through and ruin my wife's dining table and then be out in the doghouse for a while. So anyway, I'm just doing this slowly just so that I can ensure that we're keeping it straight and not wandering. If you do allow it to wander, you tend to end up having a much wider hole than what you actually wanted. So we'll just do that slowly and keep going through. There's a little bit of swarf will come out as well, so I can just blow that to one side slightly. Okay, great. So that's us through there. Brilliant. Not sure how well this will come up, but we'll see what we can do. Excellent, so there we have it. We've got a hole drilled through where the lens was sitting, all the way to the back there, if you can see that. So what we're going to do now is to widen that hole slightly so that the LED will sit comfortably in it. And then once we've got all the sizes correct, then we can move on to gluing the lens and the LED into the actual lamp itself. Okay, so I was just offering up the LED to the hole at the back here, so the reverse, and it's almost fitting in. This one, it's almost fitting in with a 0.9 drill, but I think it would be more comfortable if there was maybe a few tenths of a mil extra there, just so it can sit in really flush. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a slightly bigger drill bit and then just drill a slight countersinking at this side, and I mean just very slight, so maybe 1/4 of a millimetre at the very most. So let's see what drill bit we've got here. This is a 1.24, so I don't know whether that is a 1.24, whether it's a 1.25, whatever, but we're looking for a drill bit that's probably around 1.24-ish. And I'll get that lined up, I'll get that inserted into the actual drill here. Right, well, I'll put the camera off and I'll get some pliers so we can take that out, and then I'll insert the new drill bit into the drill. Okay, so I got the drill bit out, and I've got the 1 point, what did we say it was, 24, I think, drill bit in. The one thing I mentioned here is that the pin vise here is it's not wanting to accept this this drill bit. I think it accepts up to about 1 mil alright, and then it accepts about 2 mil onwards, but this one seems to be in the middle where I can't really get it down any further. Now if you were going to drill a big hole and wanted absolute precision for some distance, this kind of wobbly approach is rubbish. You need to do a bit better, but for just countersinking we're probably alright with such a long and lanky way of doing it. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is just to centre that over the drill here, and to just very slowly take out a little countersink. I don't want it to be too much, and I don't want it to go all the way through, so I'm just going to stop every so often. There we okay, and check the depth. All the LED needs to do is just to sit in there a little bit so that the light's contained. It doesn't need to be sunk all the way in there. Let's have another look. I think maybe another whisker more down there, I think. Yeah, I think that'll probably do. Let's just have a little look at the LED here and see how we're doing. Yeah, it's maybe a tiny little bit yet. It's very easy with white metal to go all the way through without really realising it. It can be a bit like drilling through cheese. So you just need to be careful. still a tiny bit more. I think it's generally better to take your time. Let's clear this swarf off. Yeah, it's normally good to take your time on these things, just so you're not. Well, you can't put the metal back, but you can take a little bit away. There we are. I reckon that'll probably be good. Let's see how we're doing with the LED there. Yeah, excellent. That's a good fit. So what I'm going to do now is exactly the same on the other one. I'll countersink it to the same depth that I've done here. And of course, if I was going to do the other three, I would do exactly the same process for the other three and as many as I wanted to do. So I'll go away, I'll countersink that, and then we'll come back and look at fitting the LED and fitting the lens. Okay, so we're moving on now to the LED and the lens, well, the LED installation and the lens refitting. What I have here is a little LED tester that I knocked up. It's just a 9-volt battery with a 100k resistor in series, and it means that I can sort of probe about on LEDs without worrying about blowing them. Now, I normally use this for this exact sort of situation, but what I've found is that because there's a resistor already in series with the LED in the package that I bought from eBay, actually when you combine it with another resistor, it brings the current too low and the flash doesn't work. So the LED just stays on permanently, but it doesn't flash. So we need to remove that. So anyway, sorry, that's just a wee thing to mention. If you buy these and you've got an LED tester and it doesn't flash, it's probably not faulty, it just needs a bit more current than you're giving it. Anyway, so I just want to double check that the LED itself is actually flashing. So let's get it in, hopefully in view there, and let's get it wired up. Now, I'm not sure if I have wired this up the right way around, so no, we probably haven't, so let's try it this way instead. Switch over. It's impossible with these ones actually when you're wiring it up to see which way around the wires are in here, so it's kind of trial and error. But anyway, let's go for it. There we go. And there's the flash. Now, as I say, I think that's a little bit fast for a kind of really prototypical one. But it's better than nothing, and I'm quite happy to go with that. So anyway, the LED works. I'll dig out another one as well for the second lamp, and we'll test that as well, just off camera to make sure it's fine. And now we'll move on to actually installing the LED itself. Right, so I think what I'll do is to put the lens back in first actually, and then the LED. I think if the lens is glued in place, then that'll give something for the LED to actually kind of check into. Now, one of the lenses I've noticed is red on both sides, which is great, but this lens for some reason seems to have a kind of silver finish on one side. I don't know whether that's a glue or some other substance that they've used on it. So all I've done is stuck it down onto this tape here, and I'm just going to use a very sharp blade just to scrape away whatever that finish actually is. Looks to be just a sort of paint, so yeah, it's coming off. So I'll just carry on doing this for a while until we've got a nice clear lens, but it seems to be pot luck. Some of them seem to be totally clear, some of them seem to have this silver reflective material on it. Okay, so I've got the lens cleaned up, so it's pretty much clear anyway, like the other one. So what I'm going to do now is use a little bit of medium CA glue. So I don't want to use the really thin trickly stuff, and I think the thick stuff is probably going to be too much. So medium super glue for this, and I'll just use a cocktail stick to apply a very small amount just into where I want to seat the lens, and then I will pop the lens in, and then we'll use a little bit of accelerant, so cyanoacrylate or a super glue accelerant, just to allow it to go off. The one thing I'm also going to do is, just because I haven't done this exact approach before, is keep the LED here, because if I get a little bit too much glue into the kind of aperture there, or the opening, I might want to stick the actual LED right into place straight away. So we'll have that on standby. Anyway, let's get the glue out there. dot of it. I quite like using just a little bit of tape to stick the super glue on. It just means that it keeps it in one place, but it's something which is throwawayable or disposable anyway. So what I'm going to do is get the lens out that I'm going to use. So let's use this one here. Pop that down there. Now these particular lenses, I think they're like, when I say lens, they look to me to be kind of fake jewels that you might get in something that you win at a fairground or something like that. So there is a slightly pointy side. So the pointy side is the bit that we want to go facing down, and the flatter side is the side that we want to have facing up, because that's the bit that looks more like a lens. So that's what I'm going to do now. Anyway, I'll pop the glue in and then we'll crack on. Okay, so I just pop a tiny bit of glue on here. Less is definitely more, and you definitely don't want to be putting on too much, because then it'll get stuck on the outside of the lamps and it may look a bit rubbish. Excellent. So you definitely need a steady pair of hands for this, I think. I've got the jewels here now. Well, when I say jewels, they're the lenses we took out. To me, they look like the kind of cheap jewels that you might get in some freebie jewellery at a fairground or something like that. They're not. They're definitely not custom made for this anyway. But they have a pointy side and they have a flat side, and you want the pointy side to be the side that goes in, and the flat side to be the side that goes out. So we just need to line it up correctly. There we go. That's that one the right way around. So just need to coax it into the right position. There we go, that's one. And then we'll get the other. Gosh, this is quite a battle, this one. There we go. And that one. There we go. So that's the two lenses back in again. So I'm just going to let them dry, and I think what I'll probably do is give it a wee scoosh of accelerant as well, just to help that on its way. Once they've set into position, then we'll get it turned over and we'll get the LEDs into place as well. Right, so that's everything glued in place. I just tidied up one of the lenses, had a little bit of super glue on it, so I just tidied it up. There's still a wee drop there, so I'll have a go later on, but we're getting there. So I've just turned them over here, and what I'm going to do now is a similar process. Take some super glue from here, get an LED, let's just free this up, so I'll take off the flasher unit, we don't need that just now. So I'll take the LED off, the flasher unit, and what I want to do is just to prepare the wires. So with these two, I want the wires to be going straight out the back, and then through a tiny hole that I'll drill in the coach, so into the coach. So I want them to come straight out. So what I need to do that is just to very carefully, so that I don't break the solder joint, is just to grab them with some pliers and just very carefully bend the wire over like this, just so that once it's glued in, that'll be coming straight out the back. There we go, that's great. Let's see if we can get a wee close up there so you can see what I'm on about. So now that I bent this, what I want to do is get the wee, in fact, I'll get the accelerator, super glue accelerator to hand, because we'll probably want that fairly quickly. Let's get this lined up the right way, so that we're definitely putting the LED in and not out. Right, so let's get the blob of super glue. Now we can be a little bit more liberal with the super glue this time, because there's not a lens that we are being careful not to get the glue all over, but we don't want too much so that it's not going around the front. So that's the glue in. Let's hold it in place a little bit there. And then in with the accelerant, and that's literally it. So I'm going to go and repeat that stage, or that step rather, on the other side, so that we'll have 2 glued in, and then we can move on to the next step. Okay, so I have the 2 LEDs securely glued in the back here. What I'm going to do now is to get a small amount of black paint, just some acrylic paint, and I'm going to apply that just around the back of the LED, just to stop any light spillage out the back or maybe to the sides. Once I've done that, I'll apply a coat of white paint onto the top of it, and I might well give them all a coat of white paint all over, just to get them looking really nice and uniform. And once I've done that, I'll come back and we'll give it a test. Okay, so that's the backs, painted with black and then given a coat of white as well, so that the lamps look pretty much as prototypical as we can get anyway for something of this tiny wee size. So what I'm going to do now is wire them up to the, where are they going? They're behind me here, to the flasher units, and give them a wee test run, and fingers crossed everything will be fine, and then in due course in a future video I'll get them installed onto probably some coaches in the first instance, but the plan is to install a whole range of these on a number of different types of wagon and tank and coach and so on. So anyway, onwards, on to the final test. Excellent, so I've got the flasher units connected in to the wires leading to the lights, and I've removed the 1K resistor from the tester circuit, and I've just stuck these down slightly Heath Robinson style, just to hold the cable. So I'm going to hook these up now. Now these might not be, red might not be positive, I'm not sure because it's quite hard to tell, but we'll see how we get on anyway. I'll pop that in there. And there we have it, flashing light. Excellent, so that's that one working. They're slightly stuttery just because the connection isn't very good to the battery, but they do have a constant flash. It's definitely a constant flash. So we'll try the other one just to see how that one is faring. Right, well that one seems to have no flash at all. Let's just try this the other way around just in case. Okay, so I suspect we may have, this is the problem with live television, we may have a Duff flasher unit here. Yeah, so at least the LED's working, so that's the main thing. I'll switch out this flasher unit for another one and just see whether or not it works, which fingers crossed it should do. Okay, so I've switched out the flasher unit. I've just used the other one because at least we know that's right, and let's check it. There we have it, a flashing light, excellent. So obviously got a dodgy batch there. So excellent, it works. I have to say I haven't done this before. It was just, or not in this particular way, it was an idea in my head, so I was a little bit hesitant to whether I should record the video while I was doing it the first time or not, but it's paid off. I think it's a really excellent effect, and I mean, let's tot up the prices here. About a £5 for 5 lights. I think it was probably about £5 for about 20 LEDs. So I mean, I can easily make 4 times as many of these myself as I could buy from whichever company it is that makes them and sells them. That, I think, if you're able and willing to give this a shot, is definitely a brilliant option for getting these more modern BR or modern era tail lamps for your loco. So I'll leave it there anyway. I hope this has been an interesting video. I'd love to get your comments on what I've done here, any suggestions for maybe doing it differently. please leave all those in the comment section below. If you're new to the channel, please feel free to subscribe or to head over to the website or the Facebook page or all the normal social media outlets and give us a like, a share, subscribe, whatever it is you do on that platform. I will follow this up in due course with a video installing this. It's not going to be immediate because I've got a few other things in the pipeline, but my intention is to get these installed into quite a number of coaches and wagons and all the rest in due course. Anyway, right, I'll shut up for now. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheerio for now. Bye bye.